What's going on, YouTube? Today, we're going to talk about overcoming fears and what you might be able to do, in your everyday life to overcome those fears that you face, whether those are physical fears or, emotional fears. Um, got some notes over things that I've kind of researched over the past few days about what fear is and how you can, overcome it yourself. These are research from doctors, psychiatrists, stuff like that. And I'll also give some examples of things in my life that I was fearful of and how I kind of overcame those myself, and you know personalize it a little bit so you guys can maybe relate to it and take something from this. So take what you will. I'll try to make it as short as possible. I'll try to make it as easy to understand as possible. So start with the definition of fear, and it reads word for word like this: Fear is a protective emotion that evokes a biochemical and emotional response in the body. Fear alerts us that we are in the presence of some sort of danger. So, the definition of fear literally states it is emotional and a physical response to danger, essentially. And the funny part about that definition is I feel like in our generation, at least, we experience a lot more. I wouldn't even say our generation, I'd say just in general as humans, we experience a lot more emotional danger than we do physical danger. And that's where a lot of our fears have built up from. Um, an emotional response to fear is very personalized. It feels like it's different for everybody else, and it feels like you're being attacked, emotionally, mentally. Things like posting on social media, public speaking, having uncomfortable conversations with your family, stuff like that, that is very different for everybody else because someone might not fear one thing and you might fear a different thing because everyone's brain is and emotions are different. And that is kind of for your own journey to figure out when it comes to an emotional fear, something that is specific to you. Um, like I remember like when I was a kid, I hated like when my mom or dad would like come to my school. Like I don't even I guess that was like embarrassment, I guess you could say would be the fear. But like I used to hate when I was in like fifth grade and they would do like whatever show and tell or whatever it was, and like my mom or dad had to come see my classmates, and I like hated that. Um, and I guess the fear looking back on it was like I was feared judgment of my peers in my class. Mind you, we're 9 years old. Like nobody, nobody like 9 year olds like bro, who cares about that? Um, but for me, it was fear of embarrassment of my family basically, and I had nothing to be embarrassed about. But as I got older and throughout high school, my dad taught at my school. Everyone in my high school knew my dad, and the more I like experienced that, I didn't care anymore. I had no fear of my family anymore, quote unquote. Um, Fear of embarrassment of people judging me based on my family and my parents. So the exposure of that for me got me over that fear. The same way emotionally, you can pretty much overcome anything you're emotionally fearing if you just are exposed to it and live it and experience it multiple times, because you'll eventually see that it's not the end of the world, because nothing's the end of the world. The second part of that is the physical response, which is when you experience your fight or flight emotions. This can come from a lot of things. The example I read online was, and I think we all kind of saw this if you watched older movies, because I felt like that at one point. If you watch the movie Jaws and you're scared of sharks, and then you end up being scared of the ocean in the real world, it's kind of a interesting example because that's a false movie. It's not real. So why would that be real in the real world? Obviously possible, but that's your fight or flight emotion. It's, are you going to go into the water up to your neck, or are you going to just say I'm not going at the beach to the beach at all? Fight or flight. Another example would be like, you're you got bullied in school. You get bullied in your real life. I mean, there's bullies and there's people in that work in HR, that work in finance, that are bullied by 40-year-olds and they're 33 years old. Are you living in fear of that person that's making you feel smaller than what you really are? Or are you going to stand up and say something to them? Fight or flight. The way to overcome this, I would say, is, you're going to have to go against your gut. Even if you are that person that is more of the flight emotion, physical reaction, you're going to have to fight. Because I promise you, the minute you fight, the minute you'll feel better about everything, and the minute your whole entire outlook on everything will change. Because all this physical fear that you've built up over certain situations is all inside of your head. And that's where anxiety comes in. You've built up all this fear inside of your brain, and your physical reaction to that fear is anxiety. And that's when your body feels literally the same way as your brain does when you're scared of something. Your body gets, shriveled up, your heart starts racing, and you feel like you can't, do anything. You fly. You don't fight. And the way to fight, like I said, is to go against your gut, reprogram your brain, stand up at least one time. Number one, whatever that thing is will probably never prosper over you again. Number two, you'll have enough confidence to where you won't fear that thing anymore. Something I got from these, there's about 2 ways that you can overcome fear in your life. And this is a new one to me. I've never heard this. Systematic desensitization, which is exposure to situations. The example I read online was, and I never was like this, but I know people that are like this, that are scared to fly, scared to go on planes. My granddad is scared to go on planes. He's been on one flight his whole life. He's 81 years old. It's insane to me. He drives everywhere. But systematic desensitization basically says, put that person on that plane, whatever, they might be anxiety through the roof, throwing up, crying, scared. But after 20 minutes of that flight, when they realize, okay, I'm alive, I'm going to be alive, this isn't as bad as I thought, it was all built up in my head, they feel better about everything. And then they're more confident going forward with the next flight they have to take. So when you expose yourself to your fears, um, you see once you get in the middle of it that there was really nothing you were fearing in the first place. It was all kind of built up in your head. An example for me would be this: posting on social media. And honestly, smoking weed had a lot to do with that. I smoked a lot of weed, and that gave me a lot of anxiety, fear of judgment, made me feel like a little boy when in reality I was a grown ass man the whole time. And posting on social media is something that a lot of our generation probably fears, the judgment from others. And I've been doing it for a long time now, but really the past month I've really been posting it like every single day. Stuff like this where you're really getting the raw truth of me, and I have no fear of it over it anymore. This is a prime example. I have no anxiety right now. I'm shivering a little bit because it's kind of cold, but I have no true fear of judgment and fear of being judged by anyone who views my content and views what I have to say as stupid, lame, or dumb. Because at the end of the day, it's my life. I'm gonna live it how I want to. Whatever you think about me, that's okay. I've accepted that. Whatever you think about me isn't gonna change what my life is. So why would I care? That may sound harsh, but everyone, of course, cares about their perception. But you shouldn't care what other people think. That's the difference. Care about your perception, care about who you are seen as a person, but don't care about what somebody thinks about you. I know that's kind of paradoxical, but that's the point. The second part of that would be excitation transfer process, another new one that I haven't heard of. And it reads, the body remains aroused even when a scary experience is over. A perfect example of this is roller coasters. And I was scared of roller coasters. And a lot of people are. I still am, but I'll get on them now because I've been through this process before. I used to be so nervous of them. But once you actually do that, and that little fear is like kind of washes out once you're going down the hill and you finally experience that adrenaline and that kind of dopamine release, that happiness, that is what remains inside of your brain once that fear is gone. You get a dopamine release when you actually do something that your brain thought you couldn't do. It's kind of proving yourself wrong in a way. So there is a chemical reaction to fear when you overcome it. And that chemical reaction stays in your brain longer than the fear will. You know, there's a doctor and he read a quote through his research or whatever. During a staged fear experience, your brain will produce more of a chemical dopamine release. Like I just said, when you fear something and you actually overcome it, dopamine is released in your brain and you have a chemical physical reaction that will make you not fear that thing anymore. Jumping into the deep end when you're scared of it and figuring out how to swim is actually going to be the best thing for you because you'll realize the water was never that deep anyway. You'll always figure it out in your life. Whatever it is you fear, once you do it, you'll realize it was never that deep. Nothing's ever that deep. Every relationship you've ever been in and you got broken up with, it was never that deep. Every friendship you had an argument with and you lost a friend, it was never that deep. That football game, that baseball game, that championship game that you were so nervous to play in, once you're playing in the game for 2 minutes, you realize it's just another game. Nothing's ever that deep. So remember that, when you're scared of something, if you just jump full in, you'll realize that nothing was ever that big of a deal in the end, and you'll feel a lot better about it, and you'll have that chemical dopamine release. The last part is kind of my take on it. Consistency builds confidence. The social media again for me. I post every day now. Every single day I overcome that fear of being judged online. But I've done it so much now. I've received hate. I've received love. Either way, I feel confident about it now because I do it all the time now. I public speak all the time now. Sales. I remember when I started selling cars, I was so I was so scared to call people on the phone, like have those like sales calls. I don't know, it was just so nervous for me. But they literally forced me to do that shit every single day. On Saturdays, I had to make like 50 in the morning. After like months, 6 to 8 months of it, I just didn't care anymore because you don't care. You're scared that when you call someone, you're gonna, you know, make them angry, or they're gonna yell at you, or they're gonna, call you an idiot, or they're gonna be upset with you, and you're gonna ruin the deal. But at the end of the day, if it doesn't work out, it wasn't gonna work out anyway. There's nothing you can really say or do that was gonna change that. So having fear about that isn't a big deal. It's kind of like saying when you constantly do things you don't want to do, you feel a lot confident about it, a lot more confident about it, because you're reprogramming your brain to say that these things are okay and these things are normal. There's nothing to be scared about. When you realize that everything in life is normal, you won't have fear about anything anymore. I talked to a girl one time and she was like, she had this big fear of going to the gym. And I get it because like men are weird and they like to look at girls at the gym. And like it's awkward as shit. But like she was so scared to go to the gym. And I remember basically forcing her. I was like, you need to go work out. Go work out. Go work out. Go work out. And the more and more she went and worked out, she realized nobody was really looking at her. Not to be rude, but everyone's so involved in their own life. No one really cares. And the more she did that, the more she felt confident about it, and the more she doesn't care. She goes to the gym. I see her stuff all the time. When you are consistent in things in your life, especially that you fear, you'll build a confidence over that fear that it won't even be a fear anymore. It won't even matter to you. So consistency builds confidence. Confidence kills fear. And the last part is I'll talk about fear is all inside of your head, and all that fear moves to your body. Anxiety, like I said earlier in the video. And the more that you can reprogram your brain, the less your body will experience that fear. Because your body and your brain work hand in hand. Nerves that run down from your brain through your spinal cord move throughout your whole entire body. That's when your body shakes. That's when you get anxiety. That's when your heart starts beating fast. All that stuff then responds back to your brain, your body saying, no, 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 I can't do that. When you can reprogram your brain to think from things in a different perspective, then your body won't have that reaction anymore. You won't have fear. You won't have this, that, and the other. You won't have to worry about being anxious about things because you've reprogrammed your brain so much that you aren't nervous about anything and you have no anxiety and your body doesn't feel anxiety anymore. You'll feel healthy, you'll feel clear-minded, and you'll feel like you can conquer anything. How do you reprogram your brain? Through consistency and confidence, through exposure, through Systematic desensitization. That's all it is building those habits that make you confident enough to where you don't feel fear anymore. And the last part, religion's not for everybody. I get that. There's a million religions out there for a reason. But God will take care of pretty much all of that. All those methods I just gave you and things that, might help you, might not help you, it's all scientific. That's the scientific answer for everything. The spiritual answer, in my opinion, is hold on, I'm gonna let this fucking dump truck go by. It's fucking loud as fuck. Tell you what, I'm watching, bro, right now, and some people are fear of embarrassment. Maybe being a dump truck guy and making noise and attracting attention to yourself, and he does not give a shit. He's throwing these trash cans around everywhere. He wants the whole neighborhood to come see what he does for work. He doesn't give a shit. Probably because he does it every day and he knows it's not a big deal. Nobody really cares. Nobody's really looking. I'm the only person out here that's even seeing him right now. All right, back to what I was saying because he's gone now. All that noise is God will take care of all of those things. When you're in the Word, you realize that really the only thing that even truly matters on earth is your relationship with Him. And then you will not fear one single thing. You won't even fear dying because then you know in your heart, when I die, I'm going to heaven. Therefore, if I'm going to die, why would I be scared of that? I'm going to go spend the rest of my life in paradise. There's no fear there. And when you're in the Bible every day, you'll see that He gives so many, lessons on why there should be no fear. The only thing you should fear is Him and His judgment, because that's the only judgment that's going to matter. Judgment Day is the only judgment that matters. I don't fear judgment. I fear Judgment Day. And when you live like that, like I said, nothing else tends to matter, and you tend to lose anxiety, lose this, lose that, and the other. There's a YouTuber, I think he's from Atlanta. It's like our age, my age, a kid named Bryce Crawford, and he's a very spiritually involved influencer. And I've watched his stuff before, and he talked about how he was depressed, had anxiety, this, that, and the other. And the minute he gave his entire life to God, all that went out the window. All of his fear of judgment went out the window. All of his anxiety went out the window. All of his health problems went out the window. Because, like I said, your brain and your body work together to do these things. And God will trump all of that fear in your life. So if you're not spiritual, I would honestly say give it a try. Give it a try and see how you feel in 3 months. Because the people that live a life through Christ and walk through Christ have no anxiety at all, whether they're rich, whether they're poor, whether they're ugly, whether they're good looking, because none of it matters, and they know that. They know nothing matters except Him and their relationship with Him. You'll feel a lot better about yourself, and you'll feel a lot better about your life. With all that being said, overcoming fear is something that can be changed, but it's up to you. You have to expose yourself to those things. You have to jump deep into the deep end, and you have to work through it as you move through it. And it slowly but surely will happen. You'll feel better about your life. Through consistency, you'll build confidence, and that confidence will help you overcome any fear you have in your life. I hope you guys can take this, learn from my life, learn from what I've said, and put this into your everyday life, and maybe start trying things that you were scared of and have been scared of for a long time, and watch that anxiety flow out of your body. Have a great weekend.